The United Nations Security Council will hold an open meeting requested by Russia on the Israeli strike carried out at the Iranian embassy in Syrian capital of Damascus. The announcement was made by Russia's first deputy permanent representative to the UN, Dmitry Polyansky. Now, the UNSC meet will take place at 3 p.m. local time. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah issued a warning to Israel for attacking the Iranian embassy in Syria's capital of Damascus. The Iran-backed militant outfit group that warned Israel will pay for killing high-level Iranian Revolutionary Guards in a strike. Hezbollah has been exchanging near-daily cross-border fire with Israel's armed forces in support of its ally, Hamas, since the Gaza war erupted in October. On the other hand, Israel has said that it would not comment on the reported attack. But the Iranian officials vowed a stiff response with fears of even further violence between Israel and Iran's allies, triggered by the Israel-Hamas war. At least 5 employees from the World's Central Kitchen, the WCKA, a non-governmental organization, were killed in an Israeli airstrike on the Gaza Strip. The incident was reported by Hamas-run Gaza government media office. The media office said that the victims included citizens of Poland, Australia and Britain, as well as one Palestinian. The Israeli military said it was conducting a thorough review at the highest levels to understand the circumstances of this tragic incident. Now, the WCK delivers food relief and meals for people in need. The NGO said that it served more than 42 million meals in Gaza over 175 days. Australian Prime Minister Antony Albanese described the death of an Australian aid worker in Gaza as a tragedy that should never have occurred. The 44-year-old Zomi Franklin from Melbourne was one of the 4 international aid workers with the NGO The World Central Kitchen who were killed in the airstrike. Gaza's medical officials say an apparent Israeli airstrike killed them and the Palestinian driver after they helped deliver food and other supplies to northern Gaza. Prime Minister Albanese said that Australians wanted to see an end to the war in Gaza. The Israeli military said it is conducting a thorough review at the highest levels to understand the circumstances where employees of the NGO World Central Kitchen were reportedly killed in an Israeli airstrike in central Gaza. The Hamas-run Gaza government media office said that those killed in the airstrike included citizens of Poland, Australia and Britain, as well as one Palestinian. For now, the NGO, the World's Central Kitchen, has suspended all its operations in the Gaza Strip. Thousands of Israelis hit the streets and demonstrated in Jerusalem against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government and against the exemptions granted to the ultra-Orthodox Jewish men from military service. Protest groups that rocked Israel in 2023 organized a mega rally outside the parliament, calling for fresh elections to replace the current government. The protesters also demanded a more equal share in the burden of army service that binds most Israelis. Prime Minister Netanyahu's cabinet has been facing widespread criticism over the security failure of the October 7th attacks in southern Israel, in which 1,200 people were killed and more than 250 were taken hostage to Gaza. On the other hand, France proposed a draft resolution that seeks options for a possible UN monitoring of a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and proposals to help the Palestinian Authority assume responsibilities. Now, the draft resolution also calls for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian militants Hamas in Gaza and demands the immediate and unconditional release of all the hostages held in Gaza. Now, the war began after Hamas militants attacked Israel on October 7th, killing 1,200 people and seizing 253 hostages. This is according to Israeli tallies. Israel retaliated by imposing an armed offensive on Gaza, killing more than 32,000 Palestinians. This is according to Hamas's health authorities. The French government has raised its terror alert warning to its highest level following the terror attack in Moscow. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal issued the statement about the national security after a meeting with senior security officials and President Emmanuel Macron. The Prime Minister said in a post on social media platform X, the decision, which comes months before Paris hosts the Olympic Games, was taken in light of the Islamic State's claiming responsibility for the Moscow attack and the threats weighing on our country. France's terror alert system has 3 levels, and the highest level is activated in the wake of an attack in France, or when a threat of an attack is considered to be imminent. The World Health Organization released a video showing the destruction in Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, after the Israeli armed forces ended their 2-week operation on Monday. The Palestinian officials called the raid on Al-Shifa hospital, treating wounded patients, a war crime, while the Israeli officials said that special forces units conducted a targeted strike against a Hamas stronghold, deliberately located among vulnerable civilians. The Hamas-run media says that the Israeli forces killed 400 Palestinians in and around the Al-Shifa hospital and put the facility out of action, while the Israeli army says the site had been turned into a major operating center by Hamas militia. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has departed for Paris to begin his 5-day state visit to France and Belgium. According to the State Department statement, Blinken will meet with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris to discuss global issues, including financial support for Ukraine, preventing the spread of conflict between Israel and Hamas, and unrest in Haiti. In Brussels, Blinken will attend the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting, which coincides with NATO's 75th anniversary on 4th of April, along with meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba. Antony Blinken will also visit the Belgian city of Leuven, where he will participate in the 6th US-EU Trade and Technology Council. The White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will visit Saudi Arabia this week for holding talks with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman amid United States' push for progress towards normalizing relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Talks on normalization had been put into cold storage in the aftermath of the October 7th attack by the Hamas's militants in southern Israel and Israel's armed offensive in the Gaza Strip. But conversations have resumed, in fact, in recent months. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on March 21st that the United States and Saudi Arabia had made good progress in talks on normalizing ties between the kingdom and Israel, without providing a timeline for concluding a deal.
Mr. Secretary, how did you...
Meanwhile, a vehicle crashed into the front gate of FBI's Atlanta office on Monday. According to the FBI officials, the driver was taken into custody by the authorities and the investigation is underway into the matter. The officials further said that the vehicle appeared to be trying to follow an unauthorized vehicle as it entered the gate. A pop-up barrier was deployed to stop the vehicle. Also from United States, days after the bridge collapse, followed by major clearing operations, the first vessel trapped in the port of Baltimore was seen leaving through a temporary channel after ship traffic had been stopped. According to the Key Bridge Response Unified Command, the tugboat Crystal Coast was shown pushing a fuel barge through the channel past the bridge wreckage at 3 p.m. local time, heading to the Dover Air Force Base to supply jet fuel. Baltimore's shipping channel has been blocked since a fully loaded container ship lost power and collided with the support column of the Francis Scott Key Bridge on March 26th, killing 6 road workers and causing the highway bridge to tumble into the Patapsco River. Also from the United States, the United States deported 368 migrants picked up at the US-Mexico border. Trying to reach the US, 3 flights carrying 368 deported migrants arrived in Guatemala City from the United States, according to Guatemala's immigration authorities, that is. The Guatemalan Migration Institute said more planes with Guatemalans deported by the US authorities are expected to arrive this month. According to the official data from Guatemala, the US has sent more than 19,000 immigrants back to the Central American country in 162 flights in the year 2024. On the other hand, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi visited Jordan for an official meeting and meet Jordan's King Abdullah to discuss the situation in Gaza. Both the leaders met to discuss the negotiations to secure an immediate ceasefire in the war that has entered in its 6th month and the release of all hostages held by Hamas militants so far. Over 32,000 Palestinians have been killed during Israel's 6-month military offensive in the Gaza Strip. Now, this figure is according to the Gaza's health ministry. While in October's 7th attack, 1,200 people were killed by Hamas and 253 people were taken as hostages, according to Israeli tallies. Five people were found dead in the Haitian capital of Port-au-Prince after reports of heavy gunfire in the streets approaching the National Palace. 4 bullet-riddled bodies, 3 men and 1 woman, were lying on the ground in the capital's relatively upscale Pétionville suburb, which gangs have threatened. At least 1 other person was shot dead amid fighting in the capital Delmas district. Haiti has been facing a worsening conflict with alliances of gangs vying for control of parts of the capital. Over in Mexico, the country evacuated its 34 nationals who wanted to leave Haiti as gang violence spread in the Caribbean country. The Mexican Navy shared a video showing a helicopter landing on a heliport at the Dominican Republic Embassy in Port-au-Prince to move a group of Mexicans, which also included 7 minors. The helicopter moved the evacuees to a ship from the Navy that brought the nationals back to Mexico. Foreign departures from Haiti have picked up recently as the country's political future hangs in limbo, with armed gangs expanding their control over the capital. The South Korean military said that Pyongyang fired a ballistic missile off the east coast. Amid concerns Russia and North Korea are developing closer military links, the United States and its major Asian allies, South Korea and Japan, are expanding security cooperation. According to the Japanese media, the United States government is arranging a summit between President Joe Biden and his Japanese and South Korean counterparts in July. on the sidelines of a NATO summit in Washington. On the other hand, South Korea's foreign ministry said the country has imposed sanctions on 2 Russian vessels that is said had transported munitions between Pyongyang and Moscow. Sanctions were also imposed on 2 Russian organizations involved in hiring North Korean workers to help Pyongyang earn foreign currency. Officials in the United States, South Korea and Ukraine have accused North Korea of providing weapons such as missiles to Russia for use in the war in Ukraine. Both Pyongyang and Moscow have denied Seoul's allegations. South Korea's foreign ministry also condemned the North's latest missile launch, saying it was a violation of multiple UN resolutions and threatened peace and stability of the Korean peninsula. According to reports, a cyber attack has shaken Russia's prison system to its core. A group of hackers has breached the Russian prison system's database in retaliation for the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. According to CNN, hackers of mixed nationalities, including Russian expatriates and Ukrainians, gained access to a computer network linked to Russia's prisons. The hacktivists stole a database with information of thousands of prisoners and their contacts. Reportedly, the leak includes the details of prisoners from the Arctic penal colony, where Navalny died on February 16th. The hackers also altered prices on the prison system's online marketplace, slashing them to 1 ruble or $0.01 for items like noodles and canned beef. Shares of China Xiaomi surged as much as 16% in early deals as the electronic maker's sporty electric vehicle launched last week drew strong interest. Though a brokerage forecast the firm would lose nearly $10,000 per car this year. Xiaomi added about $7.6 billion to its market value as its shares touched their highest since January of 2022. Xiaomi has advised potential buyers of its sedan that they could face wait times of 4 to 7 months, a sign of strong interest. The US dollar hovered near a 4.5-month high against major peers as traders rushed to push back bets for the Federal Reserve's first interest rate cut this year. While the dollar held close to a 6-week peak versus the euro and sterling, fears of intervention by Japanese officials limited dollar gains against the yen, even as long-term US Treasury yields jumped more than 14 basis points to a 2-week top at 4.337% overnight. Now, gold, which performs best when yields are falling, was knocked back from a record peak. Oil prices rose, underpinned by signs that demand may improve in China and the United States. Growing concerns of a widening conflict in West Asia could also affect supply from the region. Manufacturing activity in March in China expanded for the first time in 6 months. And in the United States for the first time in 1.5 years, which should translate to rising oil demand this year. Well, China is the world's largest crude importer and the second largest consumer, while the US is the biggest consumer. And as we track those developments for you, it is important to know that US oil now trades at around $85 a barrel. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.